Tantra and the asana-based or the Hatha Yoga-based
right on.
teachings, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Again, you have to define, like you said, you're alluded to, you have to define what is Tantra and what is yoga, or what is Hatha Yoga. From a scholarly point of view, Hatha Yoga comes from Tantra. Tantra is a system. It is a philosophical, it can even be considered a darshana or philosophical system. And classic, or you say non-dual Shiva Shakti Tantra or Shaivite Tantra or Sri Vidya, which are Shakta schools, those schools of Tantra that were predominant between 8th and 12th century, that's like the quintessential tantric philosophy that is in Buddhism and in Hinduism. And from that time is where you have the Hatha Yoga movement really arising from. So the original Hatha Yoga, that's why they give Gorakshanath as the father of Hatha Yoga, and he was a Tantrika, So from the northern part of India, Kashmir, a lot where the Naths lived, you have these practices of controlling the energy and the bodily fluids and a lot of other practices, specifically even yantra and mantra. So typically in the original Hatha Yoga that goes from like 12th century into 18th, 19th century, you never had posture segmented from mantra, yantra, pranayama, etc. It's literally a system, which the word tantra means. And then because of different cultural and historical things that occurred in the 19th century, especially in India, in England, the UK, where you start to have a focus on the body.
Separation.
Well, you just had an emphasis on the physical form as, taking care of it and getting it fit and making it look beautiful, which is all great. And it did get so they started to integrate the Hatha Yoga practices for more of that motive.
Right.
And that was, so it went back and forth. For instance, like in India, the yogis, some of the Hatha yogis would even be used or hired by the British to teach in the gyms. So you have Hatha Yoga being integrated into the school systems of the Indians. This is 19th century, early 20th century. And then you have this, people getting in shape and focusing on the body in the 20th century and using yoga for that. And that's how, then you have Krishnamacharya, who was a very key, really 1 foot in the old realm and 1 foot in the new realm, where he's being innovative and really also, he was supportive of the physical culture to some degree. But he was old school, he's Vedic. But then you have from that one source, you have Iyengar, Pattabhi Jois, Deskachar, Indra Devi. Those four make a major impact on the world. I mean, when you think about yoga in Australia, almost every one of them, every single practitioner is going to be, the influence is going to come from 20th century Krishnamacharya, or you're going to have some peripheral schools like Muktananda's first stop in his 1970 tour was Sydney. And so he's the first guy to bring Tantra to Australia. I still have some of I have the manuscripts of his talks from 1970 in Australia. Right. And it's talking about Tantra. But then you have Neo-Tantra. So then in the definition of what Tantra is, like if you go Google Tantra, you're going to get 1.5 million, you're going to get millions of Neo-Tantric sites, which are basically sacred sexuality. And it's more of an emphasis on really taking this delight from the sexual practice to an ecstatic, to a bliss limit, And there are the technique of that, which they often will include like Kama Sutra, 2nd century, but Kama Sutra is not really tantric, I mean, it wouldn't be, by any scholar would never put it in the tantric realm, classical tantra. It was more of the time when India was in a very lucrative stage. And in that stage of abundance, they study the art of delight and pleasure, which is what karma is, So it's a beautiful scripture. It's just not classic Tantra, but it's, fantastic as it is. But it does get, it gets completely interlocked then with Hatha Yoga and Tantra, and then it's kind of a misappropriation a little bit. So in any case, for me, Tantra has everything to do with yoga. That's all I teach is Tantra.
One should obviously know both systems, or combine the system, or where it should be. It came from an integrated system.
You just have, I think one should know the background, then you can make a choice of what you want to do with it. It's like there's classical yoga. It's not Hatha Yoga. Classical yoga as a darshana is Patanjali. That's also, dates between 2nd, 3rd century. And of the 195 aphorisms, there's only a couple that deal with asana. So it's not a Hatha Yoga scripture, but it is often when you just go to any yoga place, most yogis will talk about Patanjali, but it's classical yoga. It's not Tantra. It's a dualistic system. It comes from Samkhya. There's 6 orthodox schools of Indian philosophy that are based on the Vedas, 2 of which are Samkhya and Yoga. And those 2 are a dualistic system of the body or material, embodiment, and spirit. And yoga is actually a process of kaivalya, or separation or isolation between spirit and matter. It's not, when we say yoga as union, the union is pulling spirit out of matter, out of your body mind, and hooking it or absorbing it back into the absolute. That's the classical yoga. But Tantra comes along later. That's why when it comes to its forefront in 7th, 8th century, it's beginning, the earliest texts of Tantra are going to say, no, we're not a dualism. Your body, your mind, your emotions are just different vibrations of one spectacular, supreme energy that is actually reverberating with this highest delight. And it is endlessly and boundlessly free in its creativity. And out of its freedom, it's actually chosen in a very orderly way to embody as you. And then you get your own freedom to choose how you're going to co-create and co-artist with this supreme energy. Tantra is then a very affirming, positive, all-encompassing, inclusive view that really takes off in the householder tradition. Because prior to that, you have only pretty much all renunciate. I mean, yoga tradition, all of it is all renunciate. It's not householder tradition. But Tantra comes along and says, oh my gosh, you guys, you can be a woman can practice yoga. There's like the Krama school, the left-handed school of Tantra, most radical. Women are highlighted, all castes, all color, any age, everybody hung out.
Right.
That's what my vision is.
So can we talk about that for a little bit? Just the whole, because where we live in Byron Bay, there's a lot of goddess, sort of yoni yoga kind of appreciation of the feminine, and working with that. So, in your point of view, do you have anything that you want to talk about as far as women getting into that space? Yeah, because a lot of the yoga that you see, in the West or whatever, are pretty masculine, pretty strong sort of stuff. So, we probably aren't the best people to talk about that, but just...
Perhaps. I don't know about that.
Yeah, but the women, really taking hold of their feminine...
Well, see, I think of it as sacred femininity.
Right.
And I'm a man, but I embrace my sacred femininity.
Okay.
All right? So I think we all have masculine and feminine at the highest level. And that's the Shiva Shakti Tantra, So... When I wrote the Anusara logo, I put the downward pointing triangle. I put the yoni right in the center.
Sure.
I highlighted the goddess. The left-handed traditions of Tantra are almost all oriented to the goddess, and that's been my practice for a long time. So every man has to embrace the goddess more, every person. So because we've had historically, it's been patriarchal in the largest sense of the word, worldwide for 2 millennia. Okay, you can look prior to that time, and there has always been goddess worship on every every continent. But it's a beautiful thing right now that we can actually reclaim and bring in the sacred feminine, and because the sacred feminine in that way largely represents embodiment. I mean, that's why I put the triangle there, because it is saying, look, you don't have to get out of this place. You don't have to like aspire to, let's get out. Let's transcend this world. This world sucks. It's the cesspool of just suffering, Oh my God, I incarnated again. I've screwed up again. Can you believe I got back here again? I'll never get it right. Let me get off this wheel. I'm getting nauseated, this merry-go-round of embodiment. But Tantra doesn't say that. Tantra says, oh, I incarnated again. Oh, I'm so lucky. It's a miracle. It's like, look, I get a chance again. Let me do this. I'm going to get better this time. I'm going to speak where it's more eloquent. I'm going to speak where the words become so beautiful that the goddess actually ripples through the person's ears and through their blood. And that I'm going to be able to touch them, and they feel the sensitivity of my touch, that they'll open to something bigger than the limited idea of themselves. And that when the light in the eye, you see the dancing of the divine in the light of the eye, that deep goddess Kali's energy that's in every pupil just draws you right into where we all connect, the very heart. And that's goddess. And then everything's the Shakti. And everything's Shiva. There's consciousness everywhere, but that consciousness, and we anthropomorphize. I mean, that's why we call it feminine and masculine, and we get caught in the outside saying man and woman. But I mean, look, every person has both currents in them. Okay. And it's amazing. I mean, you and I are both, may I say, and we have a good testosterone level, but the fine line, even when you have strong testosterone, there's a fine line where there's other balancing hormone. And so we're all very androgynous in many regards. So that's why Anusara, any tantric system would all embrace homosexuality, bisexuality. In India, there's literally, you have trigender. You don't just have bigender. So some people have both set of genitals. There's hermaphrodites, and that's actually a recognized gender. So I always, not to be disrespectful, but I make the joke about trisexuality, which is no one has ever heard of that. But I thought, hey, if they're going to embrace it, then they could be trisexual.
Just try it.
Yeah, try it. Very good. Now, I don't personally go that far. Thank you very much, okay? Thank you. But in every regard, I'm open to, if someone says, I say, look, the goddess and God and goddess live in all of us. And let us, part of our dharma, our swadharma, is awakening that within us and embodying it more fully. Let's get better at it. We become more skillful. We become more connoisseur and artists and really taking sovereignty of this embodiment and embracing it in the highest. So Shri is like, you look on my website and you'll see the word Shri. I mean, that's the highest goddess name, Shri is Lakshmi's name. That Shri means the very auspicious benevolence of the very essence of being. It's that shimmering light of divine beauty. That is why, Lakshmi is in her golden resplendence. That's why they call her Shri. And that's in everybody. It's in every heart. It's at the very essence. And we just have to mine it out, like what we do in Australia, mine all the great resources.